Hello, you crazy warlocks. We saw Rogue One, and it was very enjoyable. But here's why it sucked. Number 1, pandering.
First off, Star Wars fans. That's a problem. This movie, I feel like, is something that is actually stroking the ego of fans of original Star Wars. That's what it is to me. So, it's like, it's them finally giving those fans Darth Vader many obvious links and nods to the original trilogy. And it's kind of pornographic and makes me ill. I don't know, that's how I feel about it.
My problem with the pandering is wrapped up in pretty much 2 characters. That's Governor, Grand Moff Tarkin, and Princess Leia Organa. We didn't need CG monsters in the movie. They look odd and out of place, and I didn't like it. Something that my brother brought up, he was supposed to be here today, but he couldn't, but something that he brought up was that Grand Moff Tarkin could have easily been always in hologram form. Then, it would have been a perfect effect. It would have been a little grainy, and he would have looked like he wasn't really supposed to be there, instead of being this awful Pixar nonsense. Alright? On top of that, we never needed to see Leia. We never needed to see her once. We saw the back of her hood, that was plenty of iconography, could have a real person in there, save yourself $1 million, Star Wars. Forget it! Number 2, humor. Darth Vader doesn't do one-liners. There's a scene when he's talking to Orson, and Orson is, he's really insecure about Grand Moff Tarkin taking the Death Star away from him, and then he goes and tells Mommy, he's like, hey, can I still be in charge of the Death Star? And it's like the last thing, they argued about a few things, but either way, it was one more thing. He was basically asking Vader for a favor after what was already a difficult conversation, and so, like Vader should, choked him. Here's the deal. Vader stopped choking him, which Vader doesn't do. There was one time when Vader choked a guy and didn't kill him, and it was when Tarkin was there to stop him. So, Vader choked him just to scare him a little bit, and then after scaring him, he was like, try not to choke on your ambitions.
Yeah.
You don't...
Yeah. It was so bad.
He should have been at that point, at the end of the movie, he should have been tossing rebels around, being like, try not to be too pushy.
Yeah. I feel like this Darth Vader is what Kylo Ren imagines Darth Vader was like. A little bit cooler. He's got one-liners. Everyone's afraid of him.
Got a sweet space car.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I see it. I think that's what they did.
He can hit a holo projector without putting a quarter in to play his favorite music. Mm-hmm. He gets all the ladies.
Exactly.
Okay.
Number 3. Too many characters.
Pikachu versus Darth Vader. So at the beginning of this movie, we're introduced to 17 different planets and 11 different characters, and they all have a different motivation, and one of them's already in flashback mode, and Boris Whittaker's got different hair, and it's a mess. The first 20 minutes of this movie has complete ADD. Okay, they're flying around just doing a bunch of crap, trying to introduce these characters without really trying to explain these characters. It wasn't until the 40-minute mark that I really understood what Cassian was supposed to be. He dresses like Han Solo, he flies like Luke Skywalker, but his actual point that you get to is that he's conflicted about being a killer. Which, he shoots somebody at the beginning of the movie that was supposed to be a friend, and yeah, that was kind of a dark thing. But they didn't really explain it. I didn't even know who that guy that he shot was. They never explained that, even in the slightest. They didn't set up anything. They were just trying to cram as many people into that ship as possible. At the end of the movie, they actually talk about spaceships being cramped because of all the people. By the time Luke Skywalker and Han Solo leave Tatooine, we have a pretty good idea about both of those guys. We had a pretty good idea about Poe Dameron and Finn by the time they left the Star Destroyer, the Death Star. Where did they leave? Where were they?
Starkiller Base.
They were not Starkiller Base. But by the time they made their big escape, we knew who they were. Snarky pilot, inexperienced stormtrooper. Okay? It's not hard. You just have to not cut the scene before you explain people.
A lot of them were played very well, they acted well, but they didn't have the motivation. We didn't know what those exact motivations were. I think we missed an opportunity here with all these, potential backstories. With one character in particular, I think the pilot, the defector from the Empire, just like Finn in Episode 7, that was one of the main characters. Like, he was awesome. Like, we love seeing that journey from being very upset about being a stormtrooper and then finally, switching sides. That could have been a really interesting development to watch, is actually watching that pilot defect and meet Jin's father, what's his name?
Darian.
And actually having that interaction on screen would have been actually really cool. I would have loved to have seen that develop, but we didn't get to see that because there's too many characters.
Number 4, K2.
Okay. So, K2 existed specifically to be another C-3PO. Don't get me wrong, I liked K2, but here's the problem. K2 tells us what he is. He's a strategy droid. Okay? He's not an attack bot. He's not a statistician. He's a strategy bot. Here's the problem, is that all he does in the movie is spout out statistics exactly like C-3PO did. Here's the other problem. C-3PO also did other stuff. He was a protocol droid. He was good with platitudes. He spoke a lot of languages. He was the default interpreter, and there was a reason for him to be there. K2 did one thing. That was spout the nonsense statistics. Okay? Why? Because they wanted him to seem like C-3PO without putting too much effort into it. He even has action sequences, and I get that he did that, but any character could have done that, except for some of the more robot-intensive things that he did with precise catching of bombs and throwing them around and stuff like that. But he was injected into that scene for absolutely no reason. He literally shows up, and then they tell him to go away. Complete waste of one of my favorite characters.
So my only 2 cents on K2 is the damn droid talks to himself when no one is there. That is dumb. They did it for the humor. I get it. Ha ha. But that's dumb.
They did that in the original Star Wars.
Which is dumb, too.
Also, at one point, K2 gets shot to death, and it's a very emotional moment. You're not supposed to be emotional over droids. C-3PO, in both the prequels and the original trilogy, gets blown up for slapstick effect, because they're appliances. People are dismissive towards them. In Return of the Jedi, Luke tries to give C-3PO away as a gift to Jabba. And, so he's some slave trader? No, it's giving somebody a toaster. It's just a droid. Stop letting the music swell every time one of them dies. And there's absolutely no reason for Rey to have any connection to BB-8 either. So stop that too, while we're at it.
Yeah, you're basically setting up humanity to have emotions for droids. That's our weakness. They will win eventually. They will take over and kill us all.
Thanks, Joaquin Phoenix.
Number 5, Donnie Yen.
So Donnie Yen, that's the actor's name.
Yes.
But he plays
Monty Bin.
Yeah, the blind guy. I don't mean to pigeonhole him as the blind guy, but he's the blind guy. He doesn't have a lot of usefulness in the movie. He's just kind of a guy that's there to use the Force. He's the only Force good guy user, I guess. And he's not a Jedi, right? He kind of has to pray to the Force or something. So he's the only Force user. He's a Force sensitive character. So I think they just had to interject some type of Force user into the movie. And this one seems a little forced. He doesn't have a lot of use otherwise, except for to fight stormtroopers with his bow staff or something. Which is all a little bit silly to me. But I don't think there's just one more character that we just didn't need at all.
Also, Donnie Yen has cataracts. I know that they had to have a blind guy and they wanted him to make sure that everybody knew he was blind because he looked blind, because he had cataracts, but here's the problem. He exists in a universe where artificial limbs that actually have touch sense are common, where people are walking around with artificial lungs and stuff like that. We can fix cataracts today. And some people are going to be thinking, oh, I guess he thought that it was the will of the Force for him to be blind. It would be such a simple problem for him to fix in a galaxy far, far away. it would have been like having a cold, a minor inconvenience for him. And it would have been cheap to correct. If he said, oh, it was just his fate to be blind, then he could have just as easily said, oh, it's just my fate to be dirty and never take a bath. It would have been that small a problem to correct.
Number 6, Boris Whittaker!
So Forrest Whitaker is in this movie specifically to be Darth Vader's cousin. He's got a robot body, he's got a respirator that they actually use the same sound effect for, because he's got his little gas mask. He does the exact same thing. Why did Star Wars need Dr. Frankenstein? He is literally Dr. Frankenstein in this movie. He's in a crazy old temple, and he tortures people with monsters in his laboratory. At one point, he's literally, no joke, if you haven't seen the movie, go see it, it's amazing. Because he literally has this giant squid down in his torture dungeon, and he's got the pilot with him, and he's like, no lie is safe from the squid thing. The unfortunate side effect is that it drives the subject mad. Like, it was literally Dr. Frankenstein, and it was so ham-fisted and just not Star Wars.
They led us to believe the pilot did go insane, but then he recovered in 5 minutes.
Yes, so there's that. Hey, if you thought this was insightful or funny or whatever, go ahead and leave a like down below, or a comment, or a subscription, or whatever you want to leave. Leave $5. I think you actually put the little support button down at the bottom because you're awful.
It's in the description. It's not in the video itself.
In either case, thanks for hanging out, and goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody. DuckTales.
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 It is exciting news.
I actually said this on Facebook. I'm actually more excited about DuckTales than I was about Rogue One going into it.
Yeah, I can see that. I had no expectations for Rogue One whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what I got was okay. It was pretty good. But all the art and stuff and the people they have associated with DuckTales, it looks like it doesn't look like they want to make a nostalgia trip. It looks like they want to make a cartoon about adventures, which is something that with reboots you don't always get. You usually get a lot of pandering.
Sure.
It's like, this is the 90s version, or this is the early 2000s version, or